There we go. We got it now. Yeah. We got new buttons here. What can I say? I've never had these buttons before, so. Good morning, committee. Good morning, staff. Good morning, everyone here. We'll call this meeting to order. And first on the agenda will it be any bill requests. So I understand we have one.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Eric Stafford with the Kansas Chamber of Commerce. Would respectfully request a bill introduction for RS 0419. It is the bill that would allow retailers to pass credit card fees on to consumers and repealing a statutory prohibition.
Okay. Is there any questions or any objections to the bill request? Well, it's an honor, Eric, that we will introduce this bill. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, at this point, we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 14. So we will have an update or a bill overview from Eileen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee. And just as an interesting point of fact here, this year at this time, or last year at this time, we were hearing this bill. So this is our annual date change bill on the annual anniversary of last year's date change bill. So this is Senate Bill 14, and annually all insurers are required to file a risk-based capital report with the Commissioner of Insurance and with the NAIC using the current version of risk-based capital instructions. And every year the NAIC promulgates a new version of risk-based capital instructions for use so that a bill is needed each session for the legislature to authorize the use of that version of instructions. Here, the bill simply changes the effective date of the risk-based capital instructions in effect by advancing the effective date by 1 year. And you can see that amendment on page 2, line 2 of the bill, where the year changes from 2021 to 2022. And with that, Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Eileen. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you. Proponents on this, I think Mr. Turek's here, so welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric Turek here with the Kansas Insurance Department. Eileen, so the department does stand in support of Senate Bill 14. Eileen explained the bill perfectly. It's a very, very simple bill. Each one of you has seen this bill previously. This bill has passed the legislature continuously since 2009 every year. This is simply a date change, changing in statute 2021 to 2022 in reference to the risk-based capital instructions promulgated by the NAIC. The purpose and goal of RBC, or risk-based capital, is to ensure that Kansas domestic companies have enough capital on hand to ensure the continuance of their operations. So, as I said, this is a very, very technical and simple bill. Happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Turek from the committee? Okay, is there any opponents or neutral testimony on this kind of thing? Okay, then at this time, if not, then we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 14, and we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 18. So at this time, we'll have a bill overview from Eileen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Senate Bill 18 amends KSA 40-2,125 pertaining to penalties for entities that violate insurance law. And the statute provides that after notice and opportunity for a hearing, that any person that has engaged or is engaging in any act or practice constituting a violation of any provision of Kansas insurance statutes are subject to any of the enumerated penalties described in paragraphs 1 through 3 of the bill. The definition of person in subsection D1 lists the business entities that are subject to these statutory penalties. Senate Bill 18 would add additional generic language to the definition, making any other legal entity subject to the jurisdiction of the commissioner also subject to the statutory penalties for insurance violations of insurance law. And with that, Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Eileen. Is there any questions? Are you guys awake or? Okay. All right.
Saving them for Eric.
Okay. You're saving them for Eric. Okay. Thank you, Eileen. Okay, Mr. Turek, proponents, so you're up. Thank you.
Eric Turk with the Kansas Insurance Department again. The department is in strong support of Senate Bill 18. This is an item on our legislative agenda which includes, it's part of our technical cleanup. This statute specifically outlines the penalties for entities that violate Chapter 40. They fail to file a report with the department where they are required to, or they fail to respond to an inquiry. If you look at the bottom of the statute, KSA 40-2,125, you can see that there is an extensive list of specific entities that fall under the department's jurisdiction. Over the years, through the legislature, the department has, or additional entities have fallen under the jurisdiction of the department, yet they have not been added into this statute. A few examples of those are utilization review organizations, continuing care providers, pharmacy benefit managers, et cetera. They just haven't been actually codified into this statute. So in order to prevent the legislature from having to go and update the statute when those amendments are made, adding the sentence and any other legal entity under the jurisdiction of the commissioner would clean this up. There's no additional requirements that would be needed on or from these entities. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Durick. Question I have is, can you explain shall and does a little bit of what the difference and what that really does?
Sure. Are you referring to the current statute?
Yep.
Can you point out which location? And I apologize, I don't actually have the bill in front of me. Thank you, appreciate it. I've got the statute in front of me. Let me see this real quick. So if any person fails to file a report or any other information, you said shall or does?
Be online, if I'm looking right here, line 24.
Since it's, I'll defer to Eileen in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The difference simply is an update in drafting protocol. We used to say the term person shall not include insurance agents and brokers and such. The preferred drafting language now is person does or whatever does not include. And that's, we're going through all the definitions as they're open in statutes to kind of correct that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions? Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, is your list of those entities in under your jurisdiction, is it enumerated elsewhere, or is that just through rules and regs, given that it's enumerated in the statute?
That is a good question. I don't know the exact answer. I don't have the exact answer for you right now. What I will say is that these entities are found within Chapter 40. One thing, since you brought that up, one thing I will say is if you look at that specific subsection, D1, one of the entities on there, let me see if I can find it, line 19, automobile clubs, those no longer fall under our jurisdiction anymore, so that specific article in Chapter 40 was repealed. I'll just state this plainly, that the department would be favorable to an amendment to strike that specific entity, since they're no longer in Chapter 40. I'll also say this too, the department is open to striking all these entities and just simply stating any entity under the jurisdiction of the insurance commissioner. That way, this statute doesn't have to be updated whenever different entities fall or no longer fall under the umbrella of the department.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes,
just redirect the question to Eileen, maybe, if that's okay?
absolutely.
Are these entities enumerated in statute anywhere else that we have to worry about? I mean, they're here, but we're just saying it's under the jurisdiction, and I just was curious, since we're going to do that, is it listed somewhere about what they have jurisdiction over?
Thank you, Senator Pittman. Under the commissioner's duties is the regulation and oversight of Chapter 40, the insurance industry. As such, because there is so much change, there is no comprehensive list of all the entities that she has jurisdiction over. And I'll also say that when you see definitions included in acts or in specific statutes, it's for, and you see this in line 13, it's specifically for purposes of the statute or the act at hand. That allows the ability for each statute to be tailor-made for whatever situation is being codified. So very rarely, I would think, would you see an entire comprehensive list of all the entities that would be subject under someone's jurisdiction in a statute.
Senator Pittman, a follow-up question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Senator Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Turk, you anticipated my questions quite well in your presentation, because I was going to ask, what are some examples of other legal entities that aren't already covered by this section? And you've listed some, and you've listed the reason that you're bringing the proposed amendment, so appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I have a question, if I may direct it to the reviser, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I find it helpful, and perhaps Kansans do too, to have the list of definition of person, that it's not only, you know, a natural individual person, but also corporation, association, and the other lists. Is the suggestion that, is it unusual that we list, I was hearing some comment that maybe it's unusual that we list who's covered in a particular section, or did I mishear that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you misheard that. What I meant, or maybe I wasn't as clear as I should have been. What I meant to say is I don't believe that there is a comprehensive list just to have the list anywhere in statute. Each statute, as you know, is a different legal issue that's being addressed, and whether it's a specific act or if it's a specific statute, we have definitions that apply to those specific statutes or specific acts. That's the reason why you won't typically see an entire list of entities, because it would be, frankly, difficult to get the comprehensive list simply because things change, and I don't believe anyone's maintained it that long.
Well, I think the definition of persons is helpful here, and I understand the need to include any other legal entity, and thank you for clearing that up. I appreciate it. Thanks for your testimony, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Gossage, I want to say welcome back. We are excited that you're back on the Capitol here, and your smiling face, we're happy you're here. So you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's very nice to be here in person rather than WebEx, and actually my question was answered. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Turk. Is there any other proponent? Is there any other opponent? Or neutral? Is there anyone else to testify at this time on this issue? Okay. If none, then we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 18. A couple notes to let you know for tomorrow. Senate Bill 24 is being pulled, so that will come up at a later date, gathering some more information. And also, I'd like to point out the fiscal notes at the bottom of your agenda is all in the applicable bill folders, so that you've got that information there, and we thank Suzanne, thank you for that. So So, is there any other business before the committee today? If not, meeting adjourned.